Elden Ring, a game that sold over 20 million copies, won Game of the Year, pulled in players who had never touched a From Software title in their lives, and left almost every single one of them staring at the screen thinking the exact same thing. What is actually going on here? The story of Elden Ring is not told to you. It is hidden, buried in item descriptions, cryptic NPC dialogue, and environmental details that most players sprint right past. From Software does not hold your hand, they never have, but Elden Ring takes that philosophy further than anything they have ever made. So today, we are doing the work. We are pulling the entire lore out of the shadows and laying it flat. The history, the war, the gods, the demigods, and the broken world you are walking through. All of it, under 10 minutes. Let's go. Before any of this story begins, there is something called the Erdtree. You see it the moment you boot the game, a colossal, golden tree dominating the horizon of the lands between, radiating light across everything around it. It is not just a landmark, it is the source of all order, all life, and all power in this world. It is essentially God, except God is a tree, and the tree gets its power from something even older, the Elden Ring itself. The Elden Ring is a primordial concept, a fundamental law of reality. Think of it as the rulebook that holds existence together, and for most of history it was held and governed by a being called the Greater Will, an outer god, a cosmic force so powerful it exists beyond the world itself. The Greater Will embedded the Elden Ring into the Erdtree and appointed a queen to rule over the lands between in its name. That queen was Marika the Eternal. Marika is the most important figure in this entire story. She is a god in the truest sense, immortal, all-powerful, chosen by the Greater Will to be the vessel of the Elden Ring. She rules the lands between, she shapes its laws, she decides who gains power and who gets cast into the darkness. And she has children, many of them, with multiple partners. These children are the demigods, and they will eventually tear the entire world apart. For a long time, things are relatively stable. Marika rules, the Erdtree's golden grace flows through the lands between. The people who carry that grace, called the Tarnished, are blessed, guided, part of the Order. Life, death, and rebirth all flow through the Erdtree. When you die in the lands between, you don't stay dead. The Erdtree recycles you. That is the system. That is the Order. But Marika has a problem, a private, festering, deeply personal problem. Her first husband was a man named Godfrey, a warrior, a conqueror. Together they waged war across the lands between, expanding the Golden Order's dominion. Their children together are Godwyn, Morgott, and Mohg. But after all the wars were won, Marika did something that changed everything. She stripped Godfrey of his golden grace and cast him and his warriors, the Tarnished, out of the lands between entirely, exiled, forgotten. Why? That is a question the game lets you sit with, but the most supported answer is this. Marika was already beginning to lose faith in the Greater Will, in the order she was chosen to uphold, and she needed the most powerful warrior in the world as far away from her as possible while she figured out what she was going to do about it. She then takes a second husband, a man named Radagon, who is, in one of the mind-bending reveals in the game, secretly the same person as Marika. Two souls, one body. Radagon is Marika's other self, a devoted champion of the Golden Order living inside the god who is quietly plotting to destroy it. Their children together are Rykard, Radon, and Ranni, and Radagon also brings his children from a previous marriage into the family, Malenia and Miquella, twins born cursed, arguably the most powerful demigods in the world. This family is a disaster waiting to happen, and then it does. One night, without warning, Marika shatters the Elden Ring. She takes the fundamental law of reality and she breaks it into pieces. The shards, called the Great Runes, scatter to her demigod children, and the moment that happens, everything collapses. The order that held the lands between together dissolves overnight. What follows is called the Shattering, a catastrophic war between the demigods, each one clutching their shard of the Elden Ring, each one believing they have the right to rule. Brother fights sister, alliances form and break within weeks. The lands between is scorched, entire civilizations are wiped out. The war grinds on until everyone is too broken to continue, and the demigods retreat to their own corners of the world, hoarding their great runes, slowly going mad. Marika herself disappears, or more accurately, she is imprisoned inside the Erdtree by the greater will for punishment for what she did. Shattered, literally, her body broken along with the ring she destroyed. And the world just stays broken, frozen in the aftermath of a war nobody won.
That is where you come in. You are one of the tarnished, one of the exiles that Marika cast out generations ago. But the Shattering of the Elden Ring sent out a signal, a call carried on something called grace that pulled the tarnished back to the lands between. You wake up on a beach with no memory, no power, and no explanation, just a vague golden light pointing you forward. Your goal, as given to you by a finger maiden named Melina and the guidance of grace itself, is to collect the great runes from the demigods, restore the Elden Ring, and become the Elden Lord. Simple premise, staggeringly complex execution. Every major boss you fight is a demigod, a broken, corrupted, maddened fragment of what was once Marika's royal family. Godric, the grafted, the weakest of them, grafting stolen limbs onto his body to compensate for his inadequacy. Renala, queen of the full moon, Radagon's abandoned first wife, driven to a gentle, looping madness, cradling a golden egg she believes is her rebirth. General Radahn, arguably the greatest warrior alive, now reduced to a feral, starving creature on a battlefield frozen in time, too proud to die, too broken to live. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, who fed himself to a god-devouring serpent willingly, choosing power over identity until there was nothing of him left. And then there is Melania, the greatest challenge in the game. A warrior so feared that Radahn, himself a legend, fought her to a stalemate that ended with a nuclear bloom of scarlet rot that poisoned an entire region for generations. She never lost. Technically, neither did he. The lands between just paid the price for their draw. At the top of the Elden Tree, you find Marika, shattered, suspended, waiting. And here is where the game opens up into something genuinely philosophical, because you have a choice. Multiple endings, each one representing a different answer to the same fundamental question: what should replace the broken order? Do you restore the Elden Ring as it was, becoming a servant of the greater will and upholding the same system that caused all of this? Do you introduce the frenzied flame, a force of pure chaos that would burn everything away and start existence from zero? Do you follow Ranni the witch, who has been running her own secret plan since before you arrived, to replace the greater will's order with a new age of stars and individual will, free from cosmic control? There is no clean answer. Every ending has a cost. Every choice says something about what you believe order, freedom, and sacrifice are worth. That ambiguity is the entire point. Elden Ring is not a story about a hero saving the world. It is a story about a world that was already broken before you got there, built by a god who stopped believing in her own divinity, held together by people who were never given a choice in the matter. You are not the chosen one. You are the latest attempt. And what you do with that, what ending you reach, what you choose to build on the ashes of the Shattering, is entirely up to you. That is why people are still talking about it. That is why the lore channels are still running. That is why a game with no quest markers and no cutscene exposition became one of the most analyzed pieces of storytelling in modern gaming. Because it trusted you to find it yourself. And somehow, millions of people did.